All right, let's just jump right in. When you or someone you love needs to go to a hospital, you want the absolute best. But what does the best even mean? We tend to think of the big famous hospital names or buildings that look like five-star hotels. But are we actually looking for the right things? We're going to dig into some really fascinating research that completely flips the script on what truly makes or breaks a patient's hospital stay. So just for a second, think about it. If you had to pick a hospital right now, what's on your personal checklist? Is it the brand name you trust? The fact that they have the latest, greatest technology? Or maybe just a really clean, comfortable-looking room? Just, keep those things in your head for a minute. You see, for most of us, when we think great hospital, our brain immediately jumps to the stuff on the left. The famous name, the building that looks incredible. We're kind of trained to see that and think, yep, that's quality. But what if the real story, what actually matters to patients, is something totally different? What if the secret to a great hospital experience has almost nothing to do with what you see on the outside?
To get to the real answer, some researchers decided to go straight to the source. They completely ignored the glossy marketing brochures and the official press releases. Instead, they tapped into the raw, honest, and sometimes pretty brutal voices of actual patients. They were on the hunt for the truth, and they found it hiding in plain sight, in public online reviews.
They focused specifically on the healthcare market in India, analyzing hundreds of super detailed stories that patients and their families posted on popular review websites. The whole idea was to basically eavesdrop on these incredibly candid public conversations to see what patterns popped up without a formal survey getting in the way. The method they used has a cool name, Netnography. You can basically think of it as anthropology, but for the internet. It's all about observing online communities to understand what people really think and how they behave. In their own words, when they don't think a researcher is looking over their shoulder. And their process was super meticulous. First, they found a popular review site. Then they gathered almost 400 really detailed stories. And from there, they analyzed every single word, hunting for the core ideas, the themes that just kept showing up over and over again. Out of that huge pile of data, they distilled it all down to just 51. These were the absolute richest, most descriptive stories of the bunch. And these 51 stories were the ones they analyzed word for word. It was in this small, super focused sample that they found the blueprint for what makes a patient's experience good or terrible. So what did they find? Well, the analysis showed that pretty much every patient's story revolved around 4 key factors. These are the pillars that really determine how a patient feels about their hospital stay. Let's break them down, one by one. Oof. Just listen to this. You can feel the frustration, can't you? It's not about complex medicine or anything. It's about a simple scheduling mistake that makes the patient feel blamed and completely powerless. And that experience, it points us directly to our very first factor. And that first factor is what the researchers called system and process. Now, this is all the boring background stuff that makes a hospital actually run, or not run. We're talking about admissions, billing, scheduling, and this one is huge, how well the different staff members coordinate with each other. Okay, or how about this one? The family just felt completely in the dark, totally ignored by doctors who wouldn't talk to them. This isn't about a bad surgery, it's about a total failure to communicate and show basic respect. That feeling of being shut out, that highlights our second major factor. The second factor is transparency. This is all about clear, honest communication, right? Are you getting straight answers about your treatment plan, about how much things are going to cost? Is there an open dialogue that builds trust, or do you feel like you're constantly being kept in the dark? Wow. This quote, it just paints such a vivid and pretty awful picture. Mosquitoes in the ward, having to bring your own blanket, no pillow for 6 hours. These are the physical details that you can literally see and feel during a hospital stay. And this experience, of course, is all about our third factor, tangibles. This is the stuff we usually think of first. The physical environment. Is the room clean? Does the equipment look modern? How's the food? It's literally everything you can see and touch. And finally, this review. This is the ultimate verdict, isn't it? It just sums up the whole thing with one final judgment. It cost too much, it wasn't worth it, and I'm telling everyone I know to go somewhere else. And that leads us right to our fourth and final factor, the outcome. Now, this is a key distinction. We're not talking about the clinical outcome, like if the surgery worked. We're talking about the experiential outcome. After all was said and done, was the patient satisfied? Would they ever go back? And the ultimate test, would they recommend it to their friends and family? It's the final grade on their entire journey. Okay, so we have our 4 big factors: system and process, transparency, tangibles, and outcome. The researchers then went back and counted how many of those 51 detailed stories mentioned each one. And let me tell you, the results were probably not what you'd expect.
So before I show you the data, just take a quick guess. Which one do you think came up the most? Was it the fancy facilities, the tangibles, or was it something else?
And the answer is, it wasn't even close. Just look at this. The single most dominant factor by a massive margin was system and process. All that boring logistical stuff completely blew everything else out of the water. And the one thing we all tend to focus on, the fancy facilities, the tangibles, it came in dead last.
Let's put some hard numbers to this because it's pretty staggering. Out of 51 patient stories, a whopping 40 of them, that's nearly 80%, talked about system and process. Meanwhile, tangibles, the physical stuff, was only mentioned in 23. The takeaway here is just undeniable. A smooth, professional process matters almost twice as much to patients as a beautiful lobby.
So, this finding really changes how we ought to think about what makes a hospital good. It has huge implications, not just for us as patients, but for how hospitals should be spending their time, their money, and their energy. So what's the bottom line here? Well, for us as patients, it means we need to look past the shiny lobby and start asking hard questions about the logistics. For hospitals, it's a crystal clear signal. Fixing your frustrating admissions process is a way better investment than another marble statue in the entryway. And it proves a much broader point. People are willing to pay for good service, not just the appearance of luxury.
You know, the study's authors really put it perfectly. They said that focusing on creating a 5-star resort vibe can actually create a business model that's way too expensive and unsustainable, all while you're ignoring the things that your patients actually care about the most. So I'll just leave you with this question. The next time you have to check out a hospital, for you or for someone you love, what are you going to look for? Are you going to be impressed by the grand architecture, or are you going to be asking about the efficiency of their systems? Because this research really suggests that the answer to that question could make all the difference in the world.